came back from the service, you went back to jumping at McCall, is that right?
No. I first went to. Well, wait a minute. That is right. Yeah, that is right. Yeah, it was when Barb. Yeah, because Barb and I got married in the fall of '68, and then that's when I went to Alaska, and then I got out and there's, well, again, another one of those lucky little threads in my life. One of the guys that worked across the hall from me in the Army was a fellow with a name, I can't remember his name now, but he was in Personnel Actions, which is right across the hall from Personnel Management. And he was perusing the books over there one day, the regulations, and he says, "Hey, Ranstrom," he says, "that Smokejumper stuff that you talk about, you think it'd fit here?" And the basic language, I don't have it down pat, but the basic language of the regulations were along the line that if you had a job when you were drafted that was in the national health, welfare, or interest, then you could apply for an unlimited number of days of early separation from the service.
Oh, jeez.
And so I said, hell yeah, looks good to me. So I whipped up this petition and stuff, kind of followed the regs and whipped up this petition and took it around and got it signed. And the last one to sign it, saw Captain Morris and Sergeant Booker and everybody signed, but my company commander, he was the last one, and he was kind of a holdout. And, "Oh, this is bullshit, Ranstrom." I said, "Sir, you have to understand, I mean, if it's bullshit, then the people at the Pentagon are going to kick it back, and what's the skin off of your nose?" "By God, you're right." So he signed off on the thing. And Barb and I went on about a 9 or 10 day leave, and when we came back, the thing was back, approved, and the guys had printed up my orders already, and they were all in a nice, neat little thing with a red band around them, a nice red ribbon, and short timer. So I went from having over 6 months to having less than 60 days left in the service. And so we made arrangements to ship my car home. I bought this brand new bug over there, brand new Vauxhall, and hell, we put 25,000 miles on that in 1 year in Europe. But anyway, so we shipped it home to New York City, and I had a cousin, Lee Ranstrom, that I'm still very close with, and he'd been in the Navy. And he lived, at that time, he lived in New Jersey, and so Barb left about 2 days ahead of me, and Lee and his wife picked her up, and then when I came in a couple days later on the military flight, and I got mustered out the next morning, and he said, "Just call me," he worked for IBM at the time, and he said, "Call me at IBM, here's the number, and I'll come pick you up," whatever. And so I called him and said, I took from the base, I took a cab with another fella, and we went over to one of the local airports there, and that's where he told me, he says, "I'll pick you up there." So he says, "Just stand in front of the United door when you get there, and just call me and I'll be there." And so I called him before I left in the cab ride, and I hadn't stood there 5 minutes, and he came, picked me up, and he had a cold 6-pack of beer. He says, "I thought maybe you'd want one of these."
Well, that's really great.
So yeah, and then we stayed there with them for not very long. I want to say maybe a day or two at the most, and we had to wait to be sure that. Well, no, it was over a weekend, I guess, because the inspection stuff wasn't available or wasn't open over the weekend. And then his wife drove us up to New York City on that Monday morning, and we had to go right downtown on Wall Street and pick up the paperwork. And I remember Barb and I still laugh about this guy. There was some guy, and he had a dress on and high heels and a very prominent Adam's apple, and of course this is like 7 o'clock in the morning, and he's teetering along on these high heels and stuff, and with a 5 o'clock shadow and stuff. Oh Jesus! And Lee's wife Sharon says, He says, you see a lot of that around here. something along, and we laughed and laughed and laughed. But we went to the customs deal where you cleared customs, and we stood around there all day, and it was dang near 5 o'clock, and they hadn't got to our car yet, and I'm standing there, and we're almost to the front of the line, and this poor kid that was just ahead of us, and he had taken a European out, and so he had long hair and kind of stringy and grody looking and stuff, and he had this old piece of crap Volkswagen that he shipped home, and I mean, they just tore that thing apart. They have those little pry bar things, and like the panels on the doors and that, they just popped them off and looked around, and they just slammed the thing with them hanging there and locked, not lock them, but close the doors on them, and they'd be dragging everywhere. And of course, I'm sure my eyeballs were about like a Cadillac hubcap or something. I'm going, Jesus, And I told this gal, I said, I have to be in McCall, Idaho in like 3 days to start smoke jumping. Says, you're not going to destroy my car like that, are you? And she gave me this wink, and she went out there, and there's one little place on the passenger side under the door, or the floor mat rather, there's this little cubicle-like place that you could hide something. She went over there and went like that and tipped it back and forward again and gave me the Barb and I got the wave, and we took off, and but we drove.
So you went right to McCall then?
Yeah, well, we went through Missoula. We went to, we drove from there to, from New York to Pittsburgh, I think, that first night, and got up in the morning and drove to Council Bluff, Iowa. And from Council Bluff, Iowa, we drove to Missoula, straight through. And then I think we were in Missoula for like most of one day, and I drove to McCall.
So what was McCall like compared to Missoula?
Well, the difference, the big difference was that they used the old Allen roll instead of the parachute landing fall. And
now what's the Allen roll?
Well, the Allen roll was where when you land, you kind of pivot with your
oh yeah,
and so you pivot by, as opposed to with the PLF, all you have to do is just tip one way or the other and stuff. But they made you do this fancy little pivot maneuver, and of course, if you've already done the one for years, then it's pretty darn hard to learn the other one. I mean, it's kind of like you've done the waltz for years, and now they want to teach you the boogie woogie or something. I mean, geez, it was really hard for me. And Thad Duell and of course Thad was a real hard-nosed guy, and he didn't, for one thing, he didn't like retreads from other bases. I found that out later. But on the other hand, now, oh Christ, now I'm going to have a senior moment here in Knoxville. Del Catlin. Del Catlin was the most wonderful guy to work for, and he was the boss down there. And Thad was second in command, but Catlin, I didn't get to do my first practice jump with everybody else because I couldn't do that damn Allen roll. Well, then Catlin interceded and said, listen, if he can land without hurting himself, get him on the damn plane. Not damn plane, because he was Mormon, he didn't swear. he was a great guy, wonderful man to work for. And but that was that was probably the big thing. That and the fact that they were one of the earlier bases, I think, that used the Twin Otter. More so, Missoula had more of the bigger planes because they had a lot more guys, and I don't know how many are there now, but back then, as you recall, hell, it was 200 guys when the base was full. It was fully operational, and at full capacity is right around 200 men, and I know the second year I jumped there in '67. I'm pretty sure it was '67. There weren't any small fires until maybe way late in the season. But I mean, everything was either it was how many plane loads you were going to take, not how many. Yeah. Not how many of the. I mean, not a 4-manner or a 2-manner or something. It was 2 plane loads or 3 plane loads or something. But God.
So those you were jumping out of McCall the whole 5 years you were down there?
Well, 4 years. Yeah, 71, 2, 3, and 4. I jumped out of McCall, and we went on some. We went on a lot of backup places or backup trips to